Homeschooling 101. A couple of quick messages before we get started here. First of all, we wanted to thank the Friends of the Library and the museum for sponsoring this content. And we invite you to check out more of our online digital programming on the online children's page on our website or the library's Facebook page. Also wanted to let you know we have a brand new program that should be starting hopefully next week called Books and Blankets. This will be an outdoor in-person story time. Registration will be required and space is limited. We will be offering a 9:30 and a 10:15 story time. I'm going to let Claire talk about recording because we are planning on recording today's event. Claire?
You basically said it. Just letting everybody know that it is being recorded, so be aware of that fact, and it will be available for later viewing. So if there's something you want to refresh yourself on, or you want to refer someone else to the program in the future, we will have that available through the library's YouTube channel.
All right, and we are asking that participants mute themselves and use the chat to ask any questions or give comments for the presentation. And with that, I'm going to introduce our panel for today. First, we have Colleen Crane. She is the founder and owner of My Homeschool Hub. We have three of her mentor moms here with us today. We have Sarah Weichel, Kirsten Kurntz, and Kimberly Probst. And I will turn it over to Colleen to get us started.
Thank you, Sheena. We're excited to be here today and answer some of the most common questions around homeschooling and how to get started homeschooling. And we know that a lot of people are in a really steep learning curve that's happening really quickly right now because of our new world situation that we're finding ourselves in. And so we really appreciate your library and your organization reaching out to allow us to help provide information to people, because starting homeschooling can be really overwhelming and it can be intimidating. And when a lot of people decide to actually take the jump to homeschool, they've often been thinking about this for years. And so we understand a lot of people are making this decision on a dime. And so we really want to be there to help you all as much as we can. So we're going to be going through, and we have 8 of probably what's the most common questions that we encounter as far as homeschooling and how to start homeschooling. And so we've divided those up between us, and we're going to go through those and answer those for you, and it'll be pretty conversational. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And if we can't answer them today, I will still take those questions and we will get them answered if we don't already have them answered, and we can get them up on myhomeschoolhub.com for you so you can look at those and support you. And you can email me. My email is colleen@myhomeschoolhub.com. It's COLLEEN@myhomeschoolhub.com, and you can contact me with any questions directly as well. So we'll go ahead and get started because we have a lot of information to get through. So our first question is, what should I consider when I'm thinking about homeschooling? This covers family needs, priorities, maybe making a mission statement, goals for my homeschool, and all of those things. So Sharon Weichel is going to answer that question for us.
There we go. All right, hi everyone. Yeah, so that is the big question, I think, because you have to start somewhere. And so yeah, getting started. In what we were just considering is that what are your family? The big thing is what are your family needs? Why? The big question: why do you want to start homeschooling? What is the purpose of your reasoning here behind this? And we know that there's a lot of questions going on right now because of COVID. That could be a really big factor at this point. But like Colleen said, just again, you probably have been thinking about this for a long time, and at least tossing it around in your brain. So yeah, as some priorities. What are your family priorities? What do you want it to look like at home? I know that in starting out with, we started when my oldest was 4 years old, 4 or 5. So and it was a long time ago. So I really didn't have a good picture of what homeschooling was. So I, did I emulated the public school of what I did. And And I found out that a lot of that wasn't bad necessarily, but I knew I had to start somewhere. And so taking that plunge, so I got curriculum. We did, just activities and things that I remember as an elementary school kid and what I liked and what I enjoyed. And then, of course, it soon tweaked. It tweaked with my experience, the people that I was around, the conferences that I went to and that are available for homeschooling, which are Colorado in particular has a huge conference that is so beneficial. I think the biggest thing I could say is you need to talk to your spouse, your significant other, whatever, your grandparents, whoever's going to be a part of that process, and make sure everybody's on board. That's a great way to start. We being a Christian family, we obviously sought the Lord, and so we knew we wanted this to be something that we were going to do as a family, and that everybody was going to be on board. So even your kids, that's a huge part of it as well. Is just what are we going to do as a family, and how is this going to look for our family? And with that, there's all kinds of things to consider. Do you have disabilities within your family, learning disabilities, physical disabilities? How do you travel? Does your family travel? Do they like to travel? I mean, just all these different things that come into play, but are great because homeschooling offers those opportunities. And that's what's fun about homeschooling, is that you have that availability to do the things that traditional schools may not offer. And so that's an exciting part of it. So as far as that goes, as a family and deciding to do this as a family, the main factor for us was I wanted to build a relationship with my kids. I wanted to keep them home. I wanted to do that throughout their education, or at least start that way and evaluate it from year to year. It's not something you have to commit to life, but for us, we just found out there was it got better as resources came, as people came into our lives. We got involved in groups, co-ops, and curriculum, different things became available. It was just something that we felt like was working well, and it was great. We had opportunities to meet different people, and there is a lot, and we'll address that idea of socialization later on. But yeah, it is definitely not something that you do alone. And so surrounding yourself with those kinds of similar like-mindedness people and organizations is huge as well. Trying to think the reasons why you would homeschool. I mean, obviously I'm sure that there are many people who are pulling their kids out because of the COVID mandates. That's a huge thing right now. And other reasons, again, for relationship, for discipleship, for academic reasons, it just works better for your family. You like to travel, for just different reasons. Homeschooling just offers a great abundance of opportunity. And it's something that you probably just need to sit down with your family and discuss. What are those things? So yeah, I think that's about, deciding your goals at the same time, what you want to make from this. So yeah.
Thank you, Sharon. One thing that I'll add to that is on my homeschoolhub.com on the website, if you go to the Start Homeschooling section, there is a page that has maybe 50 questions to help you walk through and decide if homeschooling is right for you, how to talk that through with your family, different things to consider as far as how it can impact your life, things that you want to consider. And I think those are a lot of good helps that'll take you step by step, and the line items that stand out to your family, so you can get a guide there on that spot. The next question is how to legally homeschool and the different options of homeschooling in Colorado, and I'm going to take that one for you. So in Colorado, there are 3 ways to homeschool. The first one is the easiest, and this applies if you are a licensed teacher in the state of Colorado. If you receive your licensure in Colorado, you don't have to report anything. You don't have to tell the school districts you're homeschooling. You don't have to do anything. You just take care of your kids and that's it. But that doesn't apply to most people. So the second two options are an umbrella school is what they call, or filing a notice of intent or a letter of intent. You'll hear NOI, notice of intent, or LOI, letter of intent, interchanged. You'll hear people use both of those terms. So that means that you are within the homeschooling law in Colorado, where you notify any school district in the state. You send them a letter saying, I am homeschooling my children. You give their names, their ages, and your home address, location, and you can submit it to any school district in the state. Then at the end of the year, you need to send your attendance records, and if state testing or testing applies at that time, then you send your results into the public school district. So for that case, you would do a standardized test for your children starting in the 3rd grade in odd grade years. So that's 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 is when you would test. So that is one option. If you decide that you do want to do that, on the Colorado page on myhomeschoolhub.com, there is a template, a letter template for a notice of intent, where you can download that file. It's a Word document. You just customize it for your family's information, and then you send it in. The other option for homeschooling is called an umbrella school or an independent school, and that operates under the private school law within the state of Colorado. And when you do that, instead of registering or filing your notice of intent with the public school district, you register with the school. And it's not a school where your children go. So if you do this, don't expect that you're going to be enrolling your kids into the school. They're going to show up for classes or anything like that. What it is, it's strictly for record keeping and for registry and accountability. So we also run an independent school. It's called Homeschool Freedom Academy, and that is another part of my homeschool hub that I own and operate. And with that, you register with us. We send you a letter of registration that confirms that you're enrolled with us for the year, and then you supply your attendance records and your test scores to us, and we house that. It's myself and Emily Williams is the director of that school who oversees everything and administers everything. So only she and I have access to your family's information. So it gives you an extra level of privacy that you don't get if you're sending your information directly into a state school. Also, we have other perks and benefits. We give student IDs. You can sign up for student IDs if you want, which can get discounts. We also have teacher IDs, which can give you discounts. There's other benefits. We have transcript services for high schoolers, a diploma if your student meets everything. So the umbrella schools can provide you just a different level of support. Also, we have services for I'm sorry about that. We also have services where our mentor moms, such as Sharon and Kirsten and Kimberly, work with you one-on-one. So an umbrella school gives you an extra hedge of protection around you, and it gives you more support underneath you, and the testing schedule is different. So for us, you have to check with each umbrella school, but I can speak to Homeschool Freedom Academy. We require testing on the school years ending in even years. So 2021, 2022 is a testing year, 2023, 2024 will be a testing year. And then it's for all kids in the homeschool and all of our families, regardless of age level. So that's the difference between the two, the NOI and the umbrella school, and the 3 different ways. So the 3 ways are be a certified licensed teacher, file the notice of intent, or enroll in the umbrella school. And those are some of the differences between the umbrella school and the NOI. So the next question that we have is one of the biggest questions, and it's one of the hardest things. It's one of the most overwhelming things, honestly, in homeschooling. It took me 2 years to get over this hurdle before I personally started homeschooling. And so this is a really important, very big question. And the question is, what about curriculum? How do I choose curriculum? How do I know what curriculum to buy? So this is really important, and it doesn't have to be so overwhelming. And Kirsten Kurtz is going to answer this question for us.
Yeah, it is a big question. And so I might go a little long, and I'm sorry if I talk a little long here, but I think the process with homeschooling, to sort of piggyback what Sharon was saying earlier, is that first you got to know your child and your family. So if you're coming off of a situation where you maybe don't know your child's learning style, or you don't know their temperament or what they like, it's a good place to start. And I know Homeschool Hub has quizzes and things you can take, but, learn their love language, learn, are they a leader? Are they a follower? Are they active? what's their learning style? Are they audio or visual, or do they need to be touching something in order to learn? And know what their likes and their dislikes are. What makes them tick? What gets them excited? What do they absolutely hate? What are their strengths, their weaknesses? And that's going to change. It's going to change from small, 5, 6-year-olds all the way on up to high school. But most of their style and their temperament is probably there initially. And so you really need to discover that before you delve into the academic piece. And homeschooling, again, is more about life schooling. It's not what the schools are doing this year, which is remote learning from home. If you're making the choice to homeschool, then it's got to involve every aspect of your home. What does that look like? Do you work inside the home? Do mom and dad both work? Is your schedule not a 9 to 3 kind of a day for schooling? So all of that stuff is important to consider before you even begin to look at the academic curriculum piece. And setting up goals once you have figured out your learning style and your child's learning style is the next piece of the puzzle. So whether you're doing this just for the year or until life returns to what it used to be in traditional schooling, or whether you're taking it year by year or making the commitment for the long haul, it's good to have both short-term and long-term goals for the year. So, making a list of what maybe your kiddo might be behind in, or maybe what you feel like they haven't gotten in a different school setting. Colorado does have a few things that you need to touch on, not necessarily every year. And I know that's available on Colleen's site, so I won't go into that too much. But over time, you need to hit certain subjects in Colorado. And then I would consider if you're concerned at all, like you don't know what level your kiddo's at, like if you're pulling them out of school, there's lots of evaluations out there that you can do at home. Most math programs that you're going to pick are going to have a test that your kiddo can take and figure out what level they're going to start at. So don't get locked into their grade level. And then another site I know, it's a more Christian-based site, but she has some excellent evaluations available, and it's called Well Planned Gal. So Well Planned Gal, and on there she has evaluations that you might give or pick pieces out of to your child before the school year begins, maybe before you're choosing curriculum. And if you're just coming into this and making the decision to do it, don't feel rushed. There's nothing that says you've got to start, August 31st or the day after Labor Day. Take a little bit of time, and even working in a few things and building to where you want to get is a good way to approach it, because it becomes very overwhelming. And yes, Well Planned Gal, that's the website. Yeah. So you've got some goals for your child, goals for yourself. This might be the first time you've done something like this. So figure out, where do you want to be from here into the holidays? I always think of the Christmas break as a good time to reevaluate your curriculum choices and kind of what you want the year to look like coming and finishing the second half of the year. And we touched a little bit about that, but I'm really big on the family mission statement. This was my husband's idea a few years back, and it's really helped us. Like, what is it going to be? And I used the one that I liked that was the shortest. We had a mission statement of character and kindness, and we're still working on that. But that was a really easy mission statement, and we actually put it on our daily schedule, and it's posted on our refrigerator as we make that plan for the year. So that's a huge chunk of work to be doing before you even get to that academic piece. And so now I'll talk a little bit about that, because once you know your child and know your own learning style, it makes a difference whether you're an audio or visual learner, and how you teach your child. If it's not going to work for one of you, it's probably not going to be successful. So make sure you pick something that works well for you as well as the child equally. And then I would take a look at always having what I call a have and a want in your homeschooling. We all know there's things you have to do. And so maybe in your family, it might be this year, it's reading, writing, arithmetic, and science. So along with a have to course, go ahead and take a want to. Maybe your child is really interested in electronics and you want to put them into a learning snap kit kind of a course. And maybe you really have a passion for a certain subject. Like for me, it's history. So put something in there you're passionate about, because your passion is going to instill a level of learning for them. And I know I got the wave, but bear with me. I got a couple more things that I want to throw in there on curriculum because I know it's a big deal. So the other thing is, I would say don't overschedule when you pick a curriculum, and make sure you have balance. Be willing to throw out something if it's not working. You know, give it 8 weeks or so, but if it's just a mess and everybody hates science time, don't do it anymore. You kind of have to budget in your finances for a little bit of mistake every year. So don't feel like I bought it, I got to finish it. A couple go-to places I would tell you to start with when you're looking at curriculum. Number one is Kathy Duffy, and that's Kathy with a C. She is a homeschool guru on curriculum. She reviews everything. If she hasn't reviewed it yet, she will. She does secular, she does religious-based curriculums, special needs, and it's very clear on her site. She does the hard work for you and tells you, does it take a lot of time to be involved in this for the parent? Is it for more independent learners? Is it online? So please check out her site. She has a little red apple top 102 pick. Those are her favorites as far as usability, accessibility, and maybe long-term, like you might be able to even start with a certain thing and carry it all the way through high school if that's important to you. The other place for purchasing curriculum I would send you to is Rainbow Resources. They've been around for years catering to homeschoolers, and they will generally have the best price. I will give the addendum that with COVID, they are completely overwhelmed with orders, and things being in and out of stock are definitely going to be expected this year. So give yourself time when ordering, but they have the best price, do free shipping over $75. So those two places I would go to. If you are looking for something that comes in a box and down to the paper clip, there's lots of curriculums that can do that. Rainbow Resources will have suggestions for you, but if you want specific companies, there's Sunlight, which is SONLIGHT. This is a religious-based curriculum, but they do have a lot of secular items in that if you don't want that piece of it, but they're excellent for even just book lists. That's a great place to go. Other religious-based curriculums are very popular because homeschooling started for that reason for a lot of people. So you will find that a lot, but there's much more out there if that is not something you want. Some other great places are My Father's World. Beautiful Feet has wonderful classical curriculum, great books and unit studies. So those are a few ideas for you. And then finally, just to reiterate, be flexible and reevaluate. Know that you can change from year to year. Do what works best for your personality. And I think that's it. Sorry, I went a little over.
Sorry about that. I'm getting all of the links for what you said into the chat. And just so you know, Sunlight does have a secular version, which is called Bookshark, and I did include a link to that too, so that every site that Kirsten just listed is in the chat box for you, so you can copy those. And the only thing that I'd like to add to that, there are different styles and methods of homeschooling, and if you are somebody who likes, say, very traditional textbooks, you like to do worksheets, workbooks, things like that, that works for your family. There are some curriculums that are not going to work for you. Conversely, if you are not a traditional homeschooler who wants to do text, like I don't do well with textbooks, our families don't enjoy textbooks. We like what's called a living book, and that's more of something that's written by a subject matter expert. That's more like of a Charlotte Mason style. And so on my website, I give a breakdown of all of the different homeschool styles. There's a quiz to help you figure out what your style is in your family. And then when it tells you what you place high for, you can look at those methods and styles on my website. It gives you an overview information so you can better understand it. And at the bottom of each page, it has some of the favorite homeschool curriculum choices. So that can kind of help narrow down what you should even be looking at for your family. Because if you're like a really free living, like maybe free range was what they call it, you know, or you are more of an unschooler who wants to do more child directed, then there are some curriculums that you just shouldn't look at. So I am giving you that link right now. I just put that into the chat box for you so you can access that later. The next question that we have, this is another big question that everybody talks about all the time, is what about socialization? And Sharon is going to talk about this. So I'll hand it off to you, Sharon.
Sorry, I always forget to push that unmute button. Yeah, you're right, Colleen. That is a huge question. And when we first started homeschooling, it was a matter of, we'd get that comment all the time. If I was in the store or whatever, what are your kids doing, or where are their friends, and all these things. And I can tell you right now that you can do as much socialization as you want or as little socialization as you want. There's so many things available out there for homeschool kids, and actually you have a lot of opportunities that public schoolers do not have, because of your schedule and your day can free you up, because you have that way to dictate your schedule and when you want to do things. And so a lot of times that frees you up to do so many different activities or so many different ways to participate in things that traditional schools may not be able to reach. So yeah, with that is that that was the biggest thing and the biggest question. But what is your family and what is your child? Again, it's getting to know what you like to do, either as a family to socialize, and with that there are so many things you can do in regards to volunteering in the community. There are ways to do missions work with your church or with other nonprofit groups. There is you have sports, of course, that cater to homeschooling. In particular, we are involved in a program called Denver Eagles at denvereagles.org, which is strictly a homeschool organization that is a competitive sports league through high school, but also has some recreational opportunities for kids. So denvereagles.org, that's about the only program in Colorado, I believe, for strictly homeschool opportunity for sports. But along with that, you have camps, there's Worldview Academy, there's Summit Ministries, there's Teen Pack, which is a government, learning about the government, and different programs like that in state and local government, that kind of thing. So you can get involved in as much as you want to. I believe Homeschool Hub has a resource page like that. Is that something, Colleen? I can't remember. I can't remember if you guys strictly have a resource type page.
We do, and I did link to it in the chat box earlier. It's the very first one, actually. It's the Colorado Homeschool Resources, and it has every program, both through a publicly funded school program or private organizations, broken down by county. So you can go to your county, and then you can see a list of whichever you want to do. You can drill down and see. And I would just add to that, there's so many things available for homeschoolers now. You will most likely find it hard to figure out what to say no to. And what most homeschoolers find is they need to actually start culling activities from their life so that they have enough time to homeschool and do their academics, because there's so many things available now.
Yeah, and I can definitely second that. I have 6 kids, and we would try to say, okay, maybe one thing a year or one thing a semester, because we could get involved in so many different things and end up, doing our academics in the car, which is fine to going to those programs, but and that's kind of a real life situation in homeschooling many times. But yeah, so I mean, you can get involved as much as you want or as little as you want. And there's so many programs out there that facilitate that. So yeah, it's not something that you need to concern yourself about at all as a new homeschooler, because there's so many, there's co-ops and different things that will to orient you with your like-mindedness of where you want to be as a family and the goals you have for your activities. And so it's a big thing. So not to worry about that piece. It's all there for you for sure.
Definitely. Thank you, Sharon. The next is a big question that we have, and it's what about testing and making sure that your kids are progressing at the rate that they need to. So this is something we want to make sure that our kids are getting the education that they need, that they're learning what they need so that they can be on track to graduate and get into a good college if they want to do that, or if they're equipped to go into their career or join the military or whatever they're going to do, and then how to be able to produce evidence of that to establish the validity of your homeschool. And Kimberly is going to talk about this one.
Hello. So testing is, it's an important question. You need to do it in grades 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11, unless you join an umbrella school that has a different schedule. There are some, like Czech does like a testing year and then a non-testing year for all students. But most start in grade 3 and do odd years. I'm not sure, Colleen, does yours do that? Odd years?
We do school years ending in even years.
In
What about
even
Kimberly
years.
runs an umbrella school too. So what does your school do, Kimberly, and what's the name of it?
Front Range Christian Homeschool, and we have we are also covered by, we have a Christian brick and mortar school that we're attached to as well, and we offer things like transcripts and all that kind of thing as well. You have to, so for us, it's the odd years, grades 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So the main thing is you need to follow your own, you need to follow whatever umbrella school you choose, or if you're doing a letter of intent method, then you will definitely have to do grades 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. And you have to send your testing to where you sent in your letter of intent. So you're very careful to send it to the same place, if that makes sense. So check your umbrella school rules for that. In terms of finding the actual testing, you can there are online tests. There are tests which, if you have a degree as a parent, you can send away for, and you just have to send them your diploma as proof. So you can do written tests, you can do online tests, you can do evaluations, you can have, as long as they're a qualified individual, which is listed what that means on the CDE website, where it talks about the homeschooling laws. If the person has a master's in education or a teacher licensure that's current, and there's some other things, a psychologist, master's degree, those people can do an evaluation for you. And so there are people out there, I do them, and other people, Colleen has that through her site as well. And an evaluation is different than a test because, for example, for my evaluations, I don't time the test. So a lot of students will show you much more of what they know if you don't freak them out by timing them. So if you have students doing math and you're timing them, they suddenly forget everything they know. It's like the fight or flight comes up and they're terrified and they suddenly can't add. So I find it's much better to give them a test where they can take their time. They can come for questions if they don't understand the question. I'm not testing how they test. I'm testing what they know, which seems, I don't know why so many test taking ability instead. It just doesn't make any sense. But so that way you know where your student is at in math, in reading and spelling. And I also help with a cumulative record. There are other evaluators out there who do it differently. They might do where you send them a sample of work by email or mail, or you physically meet with them and show them what your student does. But the main point of the evaluation is to show academic progress. So that is the main point. So as long as the evaluator sees progress in your student, then they will pass that evaluation. For standardized tests, if you take, so you, as I said, you can do many of their different ones. California Achievement Test is one, Iowa Basic, Stanford 10, there are others. Those, you cannot count the SAT or ACT, just be aware of that. Even though they test skills, that's not considered a standardized test. So those kinds of tests are different. You're being measured, just be aware what they're doing. They're measuring your student against other students at that grade level of that year at that point in time. They're not measuring whether your student has 5th grade knowledge. And that's important because your student, you might get back that your student's in the 97th percentile and think, oh, yay, they're great. But if all the other students that they're testing against don't know anything in math or anything in reading or whatever, your student's going to score high and yet might still not have 5th grade knowledge. So just be aware of that. And yet it still does the legal requirement. So it's up to you whether you do standardized testing or evaluation. And some umbrellas don't even require that at all. They don't need testing. So you find what you're going to do, but have a plan in mind of how you're going to do the testing. As I said, there are many different ways you can come to us for help. You can ask questions on Colleen's website and so for the direction you have. If you don't have a student in a testing year this year, you don't have to worry about it. If you do, then usually you can do your test at any point during the year or after the year, usually by the end of August. So you have time to find out about this.
Thank you, Kimberly. The next question is, what does the public age or grade range, like each grade level, need to accomplish according to public school standards versus homeschooling standards? So Kimberly is going to also address this one and what that looks like and the differences between the two.
So public school has very, set standards of what students need to know at certain ages. You can find them. You can go look. There are books like what you need to know for 5th grade, what you need to know for 3rd grade. You can do it that way. The schools line it all out in terms of what skills you need to know, when you need to know how to tell time, when you need to know all those different things. You can choose to follow that, or you can choose not to follow that. If you don't follow that, that doesn't mean that your student isn't learning the skills they need. You might instead take an approach like our family decides to, we just look at what skills do you need to graduate high school and beyond, and then go from there. And then it doesn't mean that you necessarily do in 5th grade what they say you do in 5th grade, as long as you do by the time you need it, all the skills you need. So one big one is to prepare your students for the SAT, ACT, or either one really. And you can take PSAT tests, which is the pre-SAT or the practice SAT. So you can find out what your student knows or doesn't know. People usually do them in grade 9 through 11. It's good to take them every year. So for our family, we don't do standardized tests until we get to that point, and then we do the PSAT. Even though I do evaluations for my students, I have 12 kids, so that's what I do for mine. But I don't do, you can't count the PSAT or the SAT, but you will need it. So for college, that's what they're looking for. So the secret in getting to, you can get fully funded Harvard or not get into college at all based on your SAT or ACT score. So I had a student in my umbrella school once who was 14 and he finished calculus and everything. I helped with a transcript. I did a reference letter. He got a 31 on his ACT and he got into Cornell, and now he's working in aerospace. So if you do well in those tests, you don't even have to wait till grade 12 to graduate. And if you don't do well, then you're going to be harmed. So it's like the secret equalizer, income equalizer for people too. So there are free tests, free ways to train for that and everything. So if you kind of have the SAT, ACT in mind for your skills, that's a good place, especially in high school, to be aiming for. And you can go to those websites, the SAT and ACT websites. They have free tests. They have links to things so that you can, oh, I don't know how to do graphing very well. That way you can find that and do more. You can do Khan Academy to supplement your skills, and just get prepared for those tests. There are even courses available out there. Like there's one through our school where homeschoolers can take an SAT, PSAT test training class, and that helps them get ready for that. But in the younger grades, you decide if you want to follow what the public school says about what you need to know in each grade, you can go ahead and do that. And if you want to instead, just have your student learn one thing and then go and learn the next thing. Like on our evaluations, we have marked exactly what the next skill is. So suppose they've learned multiplication, the next skill would be division. And go up all the way through, until you're doing percentages and decimals and fractions and everything. But those don't have to be done in a certain grade. Suppose you have a student in 5th or 6th grade who's ready for algebra. Well, who says you can't? So I find sometimes you actually get a lot more done if you instead of just watching what the public school says, is like really just designing your own curriculum and your own plan going forward that meets all the needs they need to know by the end of high school. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Kimberly. I posted in the comments a link to a great book called Homeschooling Year by Year that gives you a great overview. The link is in comments to there. And then I also posted a link to an overview of information for testing throughout high school. It goes through all of the tests that Kimberly just mentioned and links to practice tests and all the information there. So that's available there. That's from my homeschool hub too. So the next question that we have is, I love this one. And this is something that I think is so important. It's, what are the elements of a good learning environment at home? And Kirsten and Sharon are going to address this one.
Okay, well, I'm unmuted, so I'll go first, and Sharon and I can kind of talk about it a little bit. We both had similar number of kids, similar age ranges as we were teaching our kiddos. I think, again, looking at your child and you as well as the teacher is important. How do you learn best? Can you work in a distracted environment? Because homeschooling can be a distracting environment. And if you have a child that really needs to only be focusing on one thing, they might need a cardboard wall around them in order to just get that math lesson done. However, on the flip side, you might have a child that needs some background noise, otherwise they get distracted. So just kind of knowing what sort of environment works best for you and your family. I don't do well in chaos. So even though my homeschooling, like if you walked into my house when I'm homeschooling, it might look chaotic. There's actually a sense of order that I've created in order to not lose my mind throughout the day, or, really just get frustrated. So that's the same for your child. What is going to work for them? I know, like Kimberly spoke to this recently, that if you've got a snuggler, you've got a kid that their love language is, affection and physical touch, then cuddling up on the couch and doing school there is a good place to go. So it all goes back to knowing your style, knowing who you are, and knowing who your child or children are, and working from there. A point too is, if you choose a curriculum, there's so many out there right now that are online, where they're like Time for Learning, whatever that is, where you're spending a lot of time looking at a computer. I would say caution you to have balance on that. And it's physically not great for any of us to be looking at a screen all day long. I know Zoom fatigue is a real thing now. So make sure you're not putting your kid there all the time. And if you pick a program, that they have some things that are away from the screen to help you. So in creating a positive environment, I think you have to come up with a schedule. And this doesn't mean that it's not flexible, but there's value in routine. I think if you learn about children from a young age, they do best with a routine, whatever that is for your family. So at least a couple days a week when you homeschool, there should be a structured time that you're doing things. Doesn't have to be 8 o'clock in the morning, doesn't need to look like a schoolroom, but what is going to work for you? The other piece is if you have little ones, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but if you have little ones, you know, incorporating them into your day too, academically speaking, is important. And, you know, consider the other things that have to get done in your house. If you've never had your kids all at home, that's going to be great. And you're going to have some new time in your schedule. But you're going to find your house gets a little messier and things break and stuff gets interrupted more. So, you know, pull them into helping out with that. Kitchen cleanup and taking out the trash and running the vacuum, whatever it is, that's all part of the life schooling process. So make that environment as part of your day too. And if you have a business that you're running out of your home, wherever you can pull your kids in with you, I recommend it. You'll see the benefits and the long-term relationship positives, plus all the stuff they'll learn. So I guess the last piece I would say is create a space to keep stuff or store stuff. You know, if you're like what Sharon said in the beginning, she wanted it to be a little bit more like classroom, then create a classroom space and separate the academic piece from the rest of your life. Try not to let it bleed over so much that you're tripping over the math manipulatives and, you know, getting a cubby to store things. Some organization is always good for your environment. So I'm sorry, Sharon, I took a lot of that. So
Sharon, what would you like to add to that?
That was all great and totally right on with everything. I guess the biggest thing is just, you know, with that flexibility and with the opportunity we have as homeschooling, just remember that you're learning everywhere. You know, learning is like what Kirsten said, just a lifetime of learning. And we, as even parents, continue to learn with our kids, and we will definitely learn lessons that we never picked up as kids ourselves. So so that environment, creating what facilitates a learning environment for your kids. And boundaries are great. Boundaries are, those are definitely studies that have been done that kids function well with boundaries and accomplish more with boundaries. So not that, like she said, not that it can't be flexible or shouldn't be flexible. But yeah, no, great job, Kirsten. So
the only thing I would add to that is books everywhere. Like if your kids are interested in a certain subject, you know, just drop, but like you don't have to tell them. You can leave books about that subject on the coffee table, or I leave them in the bathroom because that's a great place for kids to look at books, you know, anywhere, just dropping little things around. And I like checklists that I use in my house, like above the washing machine, there's a checklist to remind them how to turn it on, get the soap in, get their clothes in. You know, we have charts up as far as whose day is it to do their laundry. Everybody has to do their own laundry. I have a dish rotation chart above the kitchen sink so they can see when it's their turn to do dishes. So I think just visual cues that you can put around to help them remember what's going on too. I think that can be a good thing as well, whether it's chore charts or responsibility charts. But books everywhere. I think the more that they see the books, the more they get drawn in. And what better learning is there than reading books? Like there's no more learning. That's how you learn, right? Okay, so the last question that we have is what to do with a 3-year-old sibling while we are homeschooling other kids. And Kirsten and Kimberly are going to address this.
Well, Kimberly's probably more of the expert. I probably don't have as much as her because she's got at least twice as many children as I do. But I think it's definitely possible. And again, just to kind of carry over from what I said and pulling everybody into that academic day. The littles can do things and they love, love, love to please at that age. So I know the specific question was towards a 3-year-old, so I'll kind of gear that, but I know there's all kinds of ages. I think giving them their own responsibilities are great. So even if I'm in the kitchen and maybe I need to get into something with an older kid, I might have them take a wipe and just wipe down my handles, you know, like you get to be cleaning all the handles. So there's little cleaning things they can do. You can send them to take out the waste paper basket or sweep a floor. They have little vacuums, just giving them a chance to have some responsibility while you're doing something else that needs attention. The other thing is lots of things that are hands-on that help their fine motor skills as they're learning. So like having some Play-Doh or filling a sink with dish soap and letting them play in the bubbles, getting pattern blocks, or making, even if you don't want to buy them, you can make those things where they learn how to lace with big craft needles and something to sew. Anything fine motor where they can feel like they have something important to do. This is your time to do this while I do this with Billy, you know. So making it special for them, or having a special basket with favorite toys that you only bring out when you need it to be a time when they've got to be focused on something. And of course, a big thing for us was we would schedule time when the others were napping or having their quiet time. And that's when I would do the hard stuff like math that might take more one-on-one. So that's much more to add, I'm sure.
That's absolutely true. And then some people might want to know, well, exactly what do I do with the 3-year-old while I'm homeschooling? So you can set up your house intelligently. So you can have in mind, or if you're purchasing a new house, have in mind, I always look for a playroom if I can do it. The house we have right now doesn't have room for that, so we have the kids' bedroom is the playroom. But if you have a room that you can see into, that you set up with toys only, then you have a safe place for your 3-year-old to go within sight of you. So, and then you have to do some training. You have to teach them that, you know, they can play during this time. And at first, it was, you know, my kids complained going in there because they like the whole reign of the house, right? But it's, you know, why should a child complain going into a room full of toys to play? So I had to ask myself that and realize that I'm not asking something unreasonable, especially since when they come out after that, you know, focus time, an hour or something, when you're working with the other kids, that you're ready to do things with them one-on-one. And so then you can do your book time with them and, you know, don't neglect them, include them. That would be for like a subject like math, which needs some real focused, where it's hard to focus on a little one at the same time. And so it's better to have them in a safe place where you can peek in and then engage them, you know, occasionally while your student's doing a math problem, look in and say, oh, how's your building going? What's your, you know, like every few minutes, just take a peek and engage them. So they're not like just left there, they're included. Then for other subjects like history, like literature, those are subjects that you can include them in. So you can even have them in their own little special high chair or a little, you know, booster seat where they come and join you, and they can draw pictures while they're listening, and they're included in it. So you might think that teaching World War II history is above their level, but if you teach them book manners, I call it book manners, where when you're reading, they need to know that they're not interrupting, they're listening quietly, but then they can participate and then they can ask questions. So there's training involved. But once you do, they don't act like they're underfoot. They're actually part of things and they enjoy it. And then give them a chance to talk. Give them a chance to say what they thought of the book. And you might be really surprised that a 3-year-old actually has something to say about the Lord of the Rings, or about a history book that you're reading, and they actually you'll be really surprised at what a young child can can understand and participate with and engage with. So a lot of the times we think they're too young and they can't, but they can. The same thing with Bible. They get it. They understand sometimes more than we do. And if you include them and engage them, then they'll feel part of things. You can also pair them with an older student. There's a great book called Managers of Their Homes. And there it tells you how to do a schedule where you put pieces of your schedule, like you might have a 15-minute time block where one of your older students is doing letter cards with your little one. That's bonding time. It's really special. And then they're getting some of their things done as well. So all of that is really, really helpful. But include them in all those things you can include them. And then I would say pretty much math is the one subject, or any other thing where it's really, really focused in the little one. And they always seem to ask you more and need you more at that time. So that's where I would say the playroom training really helps. And it's always good to have a safe place where kids can go, where they can't go get into stuff that's going to hurt them, don't have anything in the room that could hurt them, and make sure you have a sight into the room. And so, you know, a lot of you might go and start reorganizing your homes, but it's worth it. If you're moving to a new house, the first room to make is the playroom. That way the kids have a safe place to go while you're unpacking. And then, you know, they get to enjoy their time, their time in the playroom, and their time with you, and their time listening to history and all those things. And you'd be surprised how much they learn. And the vocabulary of little ones, my guys would sit there in a high chair and listen to, you know, Lord of the Rings, for example, and then they get a very high vocabulary at 3 years old. And I have others. My oldest is doing a PhD, so you can have them help each other and influence each other. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Kimberly. There's one thing that I thought of while you were talking, and that's Montessori practical life skills, the tools that they have that I love, that I got for my kids. And so they're smaller, so they're built for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 2-year-olds. And so I did put a link in the chat box. It's great supplies for preschoolers. And they have smaller brooms so that they can sweep, and it's not the big broom that they're trying to navigate. Or they have like a window washing kit. This was one of my son's favorites, where it has a spray bottle. It's a little carrier, a plastic carrier that has a handle, and it has washcloths in it and a little spray bottle and a squeegee. And so they're all made for the tiny little hands, and he would spend hours washing windows. And there's things to help them learn how to cut, and cutting boards, and they're called practical life skills. But anything Montessori is also great. The premise of Montessori, though, is that you teach them how to use it first, so that they know how to use the tool. You don't just open the box, give it to them, and then they do what they want with it. So make sure if you do that, that you teach them how to use it first and stay with them until you know that they can do it correctly. So we have 2 minutes left. We've answered all of the questions that we've had. If anybody has a question, you can ask, and we can do our best to answer it quickly. Otherwise, is it possible to, Claire, can you download the resources that we linked in the chat box, and can you include it in the video when you ultimately end up posting it for review?
Claire? I think
As far as supposed to unmute me, but it apparently doesn't. I believe that the chat will go along with the recording. I certainly see it. What I don't know is whether YouTube will display it, because we're doing it through our YouTube channel. So the Zoom does record it. I will also copy it out though, and Sheena, I'll give it to you to maybe put on the LibGuide in the children's resource section.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. There's a lot of information there. Does anybody have any questions that we can answer? If you do think of questions that you would like to ask, you can email them to me again. It's Colleen, COLLEEN, at myhomeschoolhub.com, or you can go to myhomeschoolhub.com and go to Homeschool Mentoring Services, and there is a link when you pull down that says submit a question. And if you would like to submit a question there, you can do that also. And then are there any final thoughts? We have about with 55 seconds left, from any of the mentor moms that you'd like to share from anything that you heard today that you want to follow up on?
I just want to say thanks. That was a lot of good information. I got a lot of stuff in between our children being crazy. But thank you for putting this
Thank
together.
you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for bringing the kids along. That was fun to watch.
Okay, well, thank you for coming. Thank you, Sheena, for arranging this. Thank you, Claire, for making all the technology work. We appreciate your time very much.
Yes, thank you for the wealth of information and wisdom and experience. I think this is going to help a lot of people. We will get this recording available as soon as we can, and hopefully it will continue to help people who are thinking about homeschooling.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.